Let's not sugarcoat the truth. 2020 has been exceptionally hard on the MEP industry and has brought to light a lot of challenges that the industry has been facing for quite some time now. From low margins and high competition to supply chain issues and more. And yet, there are industry stalwarts and veterans who are scaling all of these hurdles in 2020 by forsaking the idea of every man for himself, but rather holding hands, metaphorically speaking, to construct towering, iconic projects that are reshaping the very skyline of Dubai through one single word: collaboration. Ithra Dubai's One Za'abeel project, which consists of a 300-meter tall Tower A, a 235-meter tall Tower B, as well as the Link, one of the longest cantilevered structures in the world, is making steady progress towards completion. Stakeholders on the project include industry leaders ALEC as the main contractor, WSP in the Middle East as the engineering consultant, ALEMCO as the MEP contractor, as well as many other firms including Nikin Seke, Mace, Omnium International, APCC, SPECON, and the Prime Focus group of companies, among others. Keeping with social distancing protocols, we have 5 key leaders joining us on today's roundtable discussion on MEP collaboration. Without further ado, let's introduce our guests today and let's talk MEP. Let's welcome Alistair Mitchell, the Director of MEP at Ithra Dubai, Nathan Hans, the General Manager at ALEMCO, Mark Farley, the Director of Building Services at WSP in the Middle East, Nasser Khalaf, the Project Director at SPECON Group, and Amiruddin Tanawala, the Managing Director of the Prime Focus Group of Industries. Let's get the show started, gentlemen. To start off, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.
Alistair, let's start off with you. Could you give us an overview of the MEP?
Okay, I'll do my best to summarize it, yes. We're here specifically to talk about One Za'abeel project this morning. It's Ithra Dubai's flagship project that we're working on at the moment, one of many, but it's very much the flagship. It's in a very, very prominent location beside Trade Center Roundabout. I think everybody drives past it multiple times every week. And as we near completion of the MEP and the entire project, I think it's going to attract a lot of publicity and very much be focused on as one of the projects for 2021. We are working very closely with WSP as the MEP design consultant, SPECON, the MEP contractor for Tower B, ALEMCO for Tower A. Prime are supplying some of the equipment, so I think we've got a good representation of people in the MEP industry here today to talk about the job. We are about 4+ years into construction. We've come a long way. It's a difficult site, very restricted by utilities and roads and flyover through the middle. We are due to complete by the end of this year. And we've got a long way to go with the MEP services. It's going to be a very intense year for all of us. At the moment, I think ALEMCO have something like 1,500 men on the site. SPECON of something like 800. We're roughly 50% through the MEP installation and a huge amount of work to do to get complete. But we are progressing. And if we all work together, I'm sure we can achieve our target dates and be very proud of the project on completion. Just to talk about the scale of the project briefly, the overall project is roughly 250,000 square meters GFA. Tower A has roughly 30 megawatts of electrical power, something in the order of 7,000 tons of cooling from district cooling. Tower B is roughly 22 megawatts of electrical power and 3,500 tons of cooling. I think those are some of the headline statistics for the project. The project itself is complex, multidiscipline, multi-use. We have high-end, high-grade retail rental office area in Tower A, 17 floors. We have a 500 room 5-star hotel, and our parent company ICD, they're building their headquarters on the last 6 floors on top of Tower A. So no pressure whatsoever. Tower B is residential, and I think we've got approximately 300 units in Tower B, mixture between simplex and duplex. So it's a very complicated and involved MEP project. A lot of very, very detailed coordination by the design consultant. And if we didn't all work together on such a complex project, we wouldn't be where we are today, and we wouldn't all still be talking to each other.
Thank you, Alistair. That's quite a detailed overview of the project. Let's move to Nathan. Nathan, could you tell us about the role that ALEMCO is playing specifically on the project?
Okay, ALEMCO has the subcontract package for the MEPD services on Tower A and the link bridge up to the interface with Tower B. Our sister company, Alec Technologies, has the ELV audio-visual GRMS package for both Tower A and B. And then we have ALEMCO Site Services, which deals with all of the utilities during construction and all the power distributions and welfare through the contract. Tower A, loosely divided up into hotels, the main ICD offices, and kitchens and large plant rooms scattered all over the place. But quite a complex job, and I think there's a lot of focus on the public finishes on it, and it'll be quite a challenge to get there by the end of the year, but we're all up for that.
Wonderful. Mark, as the engineering consultant on the project, could you run us through your scope of work on the project as well?
So a bit about WSP and One Za'abeel. From a building services perspective, we've had 40 to 50 engineers working on this for 4 to 5 years with the team. To put that into perspective, our team is around 220 people. So if you consider the amount of our team actually working on One Za'abeel at any time, quite significant. What that's enabled us to do is obviously develop our people, develop our team, and really drive innovative engineering solutions with the team around the table. In terms of the project itself, I think Alistair's touched on it. Very, very complex project, iconic project. What that does enable you to do is provide a great platform in terms of how we actually work through solutions and actually drive different engineering solutions. It's not often you get a project with a tower that is essentially horizontal. And to put that into perspective, it's created great opportunities to do CFD analysis, engineering models, studies, etc., etc. So I'd say the big thing in terms of One Za'abeel and building service MEP has been that engineering solutions and being able to actually work with the team around the table to produce such an iconic design. It's great to see it develop. Yeah.
Well said, Mark. We'll go to Nasser. Nasser, you said you were talking to me before the show and you told me that you were working on Tower B of the project. Could you go a little more into detail about what your work is being on Tower B of the project?
Correct. Our scope is the MEP work in Tower B, which is a residential tower. It consists basically of 7 basements, which are about 30 meters below the ground level. They are mainly car park and obviously plant rooms. Above that, we have the podiums, which are mainly retails. Then followed obviously with the simplex apartment, which is straight between level 5 to 26. Above that, you have the link floor levels. Obviously, in the link bridge, we have certain scope in the restaurants. Above the link, we have obviously the duplex apartment stretching from level 30 to about 56. And obviously, above that, you have the mechanical floors. So we're doing all the MEP work inside these levels.
And that sounds quite exciting. We'll go to Amiruddin. You were talking to me and you said that you were supplying products, as Alistair mentioned at the beginning of the show, to the One Za'abeel project. Could you give us a little more detail about what products you're supplying to the project and whether you've customized any of these products specifically for this project?
Thank you, Anup. Thank you for the opportunity. Prime Focus group of companies is basically comprising all the industries into manufacturing. And we are focused on the air distribution side of the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Now we got an opportunity, and I'm grateful to all the stakeholders of the One Za'abeel project for being part of this journey and being part of this iconic project. What our group of companies have contributed in terms of the products and services is we were into the conventional GI ductworks. So as Mr. Alistair said, 7,000 tons of cooling in Tower A and 3,000 tons of cooling in Tower B. We did the air distribution of this 10,000 tons of cooling. And that was a significant project for us. The other products which we were involved in was fire-rated ducting and fire-rated dampers and fire-rated access doors. Now, what I have seen in this project, and it's a commitment of not just the developer, but also the consultants and the contractors who have not just designed a safe system, because human safety is getting more and more importance nowadays with the civil defense also getting too much involved in trying to protect through codes and regulations human safety. But what in One Za'abeel I have seen is that the commitment of all the stakeholders coming together, deciding on the systems and implementing a choice of products. And so Prime Focus got that tick mark on that box, where we are able to supply fire-rated ducting, which actually contributes to the safety of the human being in case of a fire, where evacuation can be done safely. What I think Prime Focus brings to the project in terms of the fire-rated ducting is a safety audit. Mm-hmm. And this is very unique in that, the consultants come from UK especially, and we have been doing it over the last 10 years. They fly down, they do a complete factory process control audit. And so it's not, and the FPC, which is the factory process control, does not stop at only the factory. What they do is also go to the site because we as a company work with our contractors, our clients on the installation, because any product is not complete unless the entire installation also is done properly, and that is important. So it's kind of a partnership with the consultants, with the contractors, with the developers to make sure that the product and its implementation, its installation actually contributes to the human safety. So that is one aspect. On the energy aspect, which is obviously contributing to the environment, what we do is in a GI conventional ducting is, because you do it at the factory, the quality is assured, right? Instead of the site. The second aspect is, we have got our ducts tested with BSRIA UK laboratories, where they have tested, certified and validated, that this ducts, will have the leakage below the specified standards. So the leakage contributes to the loss of energy, and that's where we have been fortunate, to contribute to this project.
I think you've touched upon very important words, all of you together, partnerships and working together, which brings us to the very crux of this discussion, which is collaboration. Alistair, I'll come to you on this one to start off this discussion on collaboration. How crucial do you feel collaboration has been on a project of this scale? And could you give us an example or two to show how vital collaboration has been to bring the project to where it is today in terms of its MEP and HVAC?
Yeah, as we've, I think, maybe become clear through what everybody's said so far, is that it's a very complex project for MEP. To me, you can tell very quickly when you enter the meeting room on a project whether people are collaborating or not. Right. If you can sit around a meeting table, come in cold to a project, and you can tell who the main contractor is, who the consultant is, who the MEP contractor is, very quickly, then that's probably because they're all fighting and squabbling with each other. And that's not collaboration. That's right. If you go to a project and you have difficulty to figure out who works for who, that's a good sign, because they're obviously all working together. And that's what I like to see. I like to see our teams of contractors and consultants, project managers working together. And I think the client's got a very important role to play in that as well. We're all part of these projects. We're all here for the same end, and that's to deliver a successful project as close as we can to budget and as close as we can to time, and do it safely. That's been made very difficult this last 12 months. I think if there's any positive to come out of coronavirus, I hope that it's to make us all a little bit more human and to be a little bit more inclined to help each other. And get rid of some of the animosity and barriers that sometimes build up on a project. And personal differences, commercial, technical differences, if we don't resolve them, it can destroy relationships on a project. And relationships, like everything else in life, are very important at work as well as in our personal sphere. So I think collaborating, working together, working closely, helping each other, especially in these difficult times, is extremely important. And I personally like going to One Za'abeel project. I try and spend 1 day a week there, if not more. And I enjoy my day at One Za'abeel. I think it's not a conflict project, as some of them are. I think that we all discuss across the table, consultants, project manager, contractors. We work together to resolve problems, be they technical or commercial or program-wise, and that's the way that all projects should be run, yes? And I think that One Za'abeel is a good example of that, yes.
That's fantastically put. It is a good example, but one thing that makes it stand apart is the very sight of it. As you walk and you drive over Happiness Bridge, you see this iconic cantilever coming out. But that also brings up the next question, Nathan, to you, which is about the quality of the project. How important is collaboration to maintain the quality of a project of this scale?
Look, to reiterate what Alistair says, I mean, without collaboration on a project this complex, all the stakeholders would not achieve what they need to achieve. For us, working together in a collaboration with the client and with the engineer WSP at the early stages of there allowed us to release a lot of the procurement for the capital plant and the long lead items, which in itself is a success. It allows us to model it into the M&E and also allows us to sequence better and plan our lives better with the actual logistics of building a complex job. The second part of it is there are highly detailed and highly complex design elements on the bridge and in the lower levels of the building. And without sitting around a table in an open forum and using the best minds in construction, you're not going to be able to get it all into the building in the right way. So I think that's one of the keys to successes on One Za'abeel, that we're able to sit around a table, run through the detailing of it, with a little bit of assistance from BIM and Navisworks, physically see what we're going to be producing, and then it's easier for us as a contractor to build it as per that model and provide a quality product at the end of the project.
That's good to hear. Amiruddin and Alistair rightly mentioned health and safety, and the past 1 year, if anything, has taught us to put extreme focus on health and safety on an ongoing construction project. And Nasser, this question comes to you. How do you feel collaboration has helped you, specifically while you're working on Tower B, in collaborating not just among your own teams, but also with others working on the same project within the same space?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the pandemic really hit hard and quick, which obviously delayed and obviously disrupted the supply chain. However, obviously we identified the material that we would have issue with, and obviously through the collaboration with the stakeholders, we managed to get alternative in place, which kept obviously the work going. However, from the day one, our priority was the health and safety of everyone working at the site. So through the collaboration, obviously, and the continuous discussion, obviously following the Dubai Health Authority requirements and obviously guidelines, we, I believe, managed to keep everyone safe as much as possible. I think we managed, obviously, through the collaboration, obviously social distances and other measures to keep the project going. And I think we minimized the impacts, and we still actually doing that now. So that's all obviously due to the collaboration of everybody at the site.
Right. I'm going to quote one of Alistair's lines from earlier in the discussion, which says that One Za'abeel has set an example for projects across Dubai, the UAE, and I'm guessing in the Middle East as well. But one of the examples that it has set is in terms of its budget and its deadlines. And that's where, Mark, you come in. How do you feel that on-site collaboration has helped you bring your ideas to life, to bring those ideas that you've brought to the table and implement them to keep the project within its budget and within the deadlines that you've set, despite a number of challenges that we faced in 2020 altogether?
So I'll probably focus on some technical highlights, actually.
Right.
Start with some technical highlights. Some of the highlights from the team, 2.9 metre high plant rooms. So they're small plant rooms and require a lot of close coordination. A live authority approvals process, constantly, back to the authorities, trying to get approval to keep the work fronts and the team moving, and ALEC and ALEMCO and the contractors. 700 individual submittals a month, pretty much, returned by the team. 57 megawatts of power, 37 megawatts of cooling. Working safely in a COVID environment. We talked previously about the link bridge and the CFD analysis and the optimization of cooling. All this feeds into budget and time, and ultimately trying to deliver a successful project for the client. I think one of the key factors in that is, and I think Alistair and Nathan have touched on it, is around people and the culture. Now, I think one of the highlights is the embedded knowledge in the team. So what's happened is we've got people who have been on the project for 5 years, 6 years, 40 plus in the design team, like we said, 15 plus in the supervision team. And what happens is that knowledge grows over time, which means when you go into meetings with the project team, the solutions are quicker, the coordination's quicker, the results are better, and ultimately it delivers a much better project. And budget and time is obviously a tricky question, and that's what we're all intent on doing. That's what the team's about. We're here to deliver successful projects on time and in line with the budget.
Wonderful. Nathan, I'm going to come to you next. You did mention in your previous answer about bringing BIM to life. There's a lot that we visualize in terms of technology, but it is something else bringing it to life. Could you talk about, in an industry that has, historically lagged in its adoption of technology comparatively in terms of its adoption elsewhere in the world as well, could you touch upon how technology has helped teams collaborate better?
Yeah, sure. I think, we adopted a BIM approach to modeling of all the MEP services within the building, and through workshopping with the client and the design engineers, we're able to visualize a lot of the project before we move into a construction phase, which has assisted us huge amounts in the sequencing. If you look at the link bridge, for instance, all of the services are routed horizontally through one level, and it's extremely complex. If we don't have a clear understanding of the reticulation sequence through that area with the plant activities and the plant access, it becomes very difficult to construct it. So I think through BIM, we were able to better sequence and better plan how we're going to be working through the project. BIM to field, we adopted a fully coordinated model with bracketing. So we're able to take BIM to field to do the pre-bracketing process of drilling. And that led to the adoption of bringing on the Hilti robot, where we are able to download the BIM to field onto the robot, and the robot would then drill and pre-drill the clear access ways for it, which is a huge efficiency for us as a business, and probably has a significant clash or service coordination impact for the business as a whole. With the acceptance of the engineer and with the client, we were able to adopt some efficient installation mechanisms there. We bought the Bosal fast-fit conduit systems, which reduced the amount of labor for GI conduiting installations. The BIM to fabrication side of our business was able to pre-bend and pre-spool all the piping systems for the chilled water, which reduces the installation time, also as a more quality-controlled environment. And finally, but not least, the modular facilities that we're able to push through on the risers through the building enable us to keep up to pace with the main contractor. And through the bridge areas, we are looking at a pod and modular installation process. I mean, without being able to sit around with the client and with the engineer and agree these systems to put into play, we wouldn't be doing it. And it is really, really reducing the volume of labor and reworks that happen at heights in a building, which reduces our logistic cost in the buildings.
Which goes back to setting an example for the industry. And one of the things that the industry has been facing, one of the problems the industry has been facing over the last 12 months, and it's no secret, is supply chain disruptions. Amiruddin, this question is coming directly to you. You've supplied products on this project, One Za'abeel project. Could you give us a little detail into how locally manufactured products can prevent or can help overcome supply chain disruptions? And if you could go probably a little further in terms of the benefits that locally manufactured products can have and bringing people together and raising the in-country value of products and services and churning the economy.
Right. Thank you. So yes, I fully agree with you. I think this pandemic has brought, the supply chain disruption into the forefront, into the limelight. But if I look, past 30 years, and I've been fortunate to be in the UAE for the last more than 30 years, I think it has evolved over a period of time. And with that evolution also, we as a prime focus group of companies also have invested into industries over the last 2 decades to manufacture those import substitution products so that they are available. And it's not just the availability, it's also about, the quality of the products, the technology. So what we do is we work with our partners in the developed countries. We source the technology. We sign off partnership agreements or licensing agreements, and also look at testing and certification, so that it is a whole 9 yards of quality assurance and the manufacturing. So what a contractor or a project owner gets for his building, or a consultant when specifies for the buildings, he's assured that this is of the international caliber and meets the international standards. Which brings me to the point, how does it benefit again the UAE? What we have seen, Dubai and also UAE have been at the forefront in terms of building a knowledge society. They have been diversifying. It's all about best practices, and we also see these best practices in the One Za'abeel project, which actually is accelerating the efforts for people and industries, like our companies, to build technology, to build the intellectual property here, to source the technology, and support the construction industry with locally manufactured products. Take the example, as I just talked about earlier, about the fire ducting. We do now have all the simulation and certification and validation in a kind of a 1200 degrees centigrade furnace, where actually how it could work, the ductworks. And we have passed all those tests. And so the consultants and the contractors or the developers or the owners of the project, when they specify, when they say, okay, good to go, it's a make in UAE product, and it's good for us. So I think this make in UAE concept about import substitution, about building a repository of intellectual property here is very important for the development of the society and the country. And obviously it benefits, the local population also. It helps, with the universities, the academic institutions. So it's a kind of a domino effect when, industries develop. But what I would like also to highlight one aspect, because I think, what Dubai does and UAE does is think over 25 years or 50 years. And we've just heard His Highness, laying out a 50-year vision also. So I'm just talking about a concept, and, in the presence of, the project owners, the contractors and the consultants, you talk about next 20 or 30 or 50 years. An idea, which I have taken it from North America. And there is an organization called SMACNA, which is the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning Contractors Association of North America. And what it does is, it brings the contractors, consultants, the industry all together. And, they exchange about best practices, about the products available in North America. Probably, I know it is an intense effort, but, if we could replicate it here, again, the MEP magazine also can do its own contribution. And, you exchange those ideas. There's a dialogue between these peers, and, we come up with some best practices, which will evolve at a very smaller pay, at a very low level. But, over, I think, a period of 20 years, we will be surprised looking back as to how far we have come and how much it has contributed to the UAE. I mean, UAE is an example of a role model in the region. The way it has been diversifying, the way it has been actually attracting good human resources, whether it's from UK or from North America or Canada or the subcontinent. So that is my humble submission and an idea that, if we were to make it to fruition, it would be great for the country and for us as industry people.
And that's a great suggestion. I feel like that's something I'm going to take personally as well as a take back from this discussion, because a lot of people, when we started the show, Let's Talk MEP, I was told it's almost impossible to get a supplier, to get the contractors, the consultants, and the client around the same table. And I said, let's do the impossible. And I'm really, really happy that all of you agreed to come on this show and break down the buzzwords, go beyond what has been discussed in the industry. And that's what we as a brand have tried to do. Speaking of buzzwords, one of the buzzwords that has been doing the rounds is sustainability. And I want to peel the onion a bit. Nasser, this is coming to you directly. Sure. As a MEP contractor on Tower B. Could you go into detail in terms of how sustainability has actually been implemented?
Sure. Obviously, sustainability has become reality, and I think the One Za'abeel is very important for the Emirates. I believe it also lead the way to obviously toward achieving the government sustainable developments. The project is designed to achieve a Gold LEED certification, which is the highest sustainable certification that can be achieved. Obviously, our scope is to implement and comply with the Gold LEED requirement in terms of water efficiency, quality of air, and obviously of all other aspects of the Gold LEED certification.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nasser. Before we wind up, I want to give everybody a chance to share a message to the industry. This is your chance to speak directly to our audience and talk to them about the need of the hour. Alistair, let's start with you. As a person who has an overview of the entire project and other projects within the UAE, what is your message to the industry? What would you like to share to them?
I think it's very simple and very direct. I think we all have to just hang on in there. It's tough times at the moment. Economics are not what we would hope for, wish for, perhaps, any of us at this precise point in time. But I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's an expression I've heard quite a lot in the last month from various people around the world. I think people are optimistic. I think we're going to get over coronavirus. I think the UAE will do it more quickly than a lot of other countries because of the small population and a very organized vaccine drive. It's very important to all of us. Our livelihoods depend on the economy, everybody in this room, of the UAE and our futures and the future of your families. And I think, let's hope maybe by second or third quarter of this year, we can see an upturn in the economic cycle, which will lead to developers like ourselves releasing some of the projects that we maybe put temporarily on the back burner. We'll see a return to some more tendering action, contracts being awarded, people being employed, and being able to feed their families and children.
I think you've concluded really well. I think everyone's got a smile on their face now that we know that projects are going to get tendered again. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Nathan, what's your message to the industry as we conclude?
I think if we can look at a more proactive and collaborative approach to contracting, early engagement of contractors, a less adversarial approach to contracting, which is one of the big things that we end up on most contracts, everybody looking after their own little empire, which doesn't necessarily produce what the client wants or what the engineer wants or what the contractor wants. So for me, if we could come up with a mechanism that operates, which allows that collaboration, both contractually and commercially, it would definitely better the whole of the market.
And you have our complete support on that. If we as a brand can help bring people together, collaborate better, nothing like it. Thank you, Nathan, for your thoughts. Amiruddin, let's go with you next. What are your final thoughts to the industry?
Thank you. I think I would echo Mr. Alistair's point. I think we need to ensure that the construction industry as a whole, not just the contracting but also the supply chains which depend upon this construction industry. We are an SME. An SME has been a contributor to the jobs market here and to the employment sector. And we are directly connected with the construction industry. So our fortunes go up and down with the construction industry. So I would echo his point and support that point. The second point is, the Make in UAE. I think, we will need a commitment from the industry stakeholders, developers, consultants, contractors to promote and accept those quality products. I'm not saying that, accept, low quality products. If they are about a technology, if they are about certification, if they are about validation, if there are partnerships, please support the Make in UAE industry, because you're supporting a 20 or 50-year horizon for the country and for its construction industry. So that are my two messages. Thank you.
And your message has been well heard, Amruddin. Thank you for being so bold and sharing your thoughts. Mark, coming to you next. What's your message to the industry? What do you feel the industry needs to address right now?
So I'll probably say a couple of things. Teamwork, so a passion to build the right teams, and them all being pulling in the right direction. When I've seen projects delivered, what I'd say excellent, it's when the team is all pulling in the right direction. I think someone touched it before, everyone in the corners, it simply doesn't work. The other thing linked to that and linked to One Za'abeel a little bit is the hardest part of projects is transitioning design through to supervision, the contractor getting started. And the other hard part of the job is closing a project. So linked to that teamwork discussion is working together to really efficiently close a project. Testing and commissioning, it requires meticulous planning, organisation and teamwork.
Collaboration and teamwork. Nasser, coming to you, how would you like to close this discussion?
Well, look, this year has been very difficult. However, I believe through collaboration, we managed to, progress very well. I think the project has been success so far. So that hopefully should encourage all developers like Ithra, obviously, to roll the new projects. I am very optimistic for the future. I believe towards the end of this year, we will be over this and the future will be good.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. It was absolutely wonderful having you here and hearing your thoughts. For those of you watching, this is a wrap on the first episode of Let's Talk MEP. Stay tuned for more and don't forget to share, comment, like and subscribe below. That's all for now, and until next time, goodbye.